The ranch had been sitting empty for almost 20 years, or at least that's what the town records claimed. When Daniel Hayes first saw the listing pinned to the dusty board inside the small office of the county courthouse, he thought it was a mistake. A full ranch, 200 acres of land, an old wooden house, a barn, and a well, for $1. One single dollar. The clerk had laughed when Daniel asked about it, leaning back in his chair and tapping the paper with a wrinkled finger. Nobody wants it, he said. Too far from town. Too broken down. Folks say the place is cursed. Daniel didn't believe in curses. He believed in second chances. 3 months earlier, he had lost everything when the construction company he worked for shut down, leaving him with nothing but an old pickup truck, a few tools, and a stubborn hope that life had something better waiting somewhere down the road. So when he saw the listing, he didn't hesitate. He pulled a crumpled dollar bill from his pocket, placed it on the clerk's desk, and signed the papers that officially made him the owner of a forgotten ranch at the edge of nowhere. The drive to the property took nearly 3 hours through long empty roads and dry rolling hills. The land looked wild and untouched, with tall grass swaying under the late afternoon sun and a line of distant mountains glowing orange against the sky. When Daniel finally reached the rusted gate that marked the entrance to the ranch, he slowed the truck and stared ahead in silence. The place was bigger than he expected. The wooden fence leaned in several places, and the barn roof had a few missing panels, but the land itself looked strong and full of life. It didn't feel cursed. If anything, it felt forgotten. Daniel pushed the gate open with a creaking sound and drove up the dirt path toward the main house. Dust rose behind his truck as the tires rolled over the cracked ground. The house stood alone in the middle of the property, an old 2-story building made of faded wood with a wide porch stretching across the front. The windows were dirty, and the paint had peeled away long ago, but the structure itself still looked solid. It was the kind of place that had once been full of life, family dinners, laughter, horses tied outside, children running across the yard. Daniel parked the truck and stepped out slowly. The wind carried a faint smell of dry grass and old wood. He walked up the porch steps, each one groaning under his boots. When he reached the front door, he noticed something strange. The door was slightly open. He frowned. According to the records, nobody had lived here for nearly 2 decades. Probably the wind, he muttered. Daniel pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was cool and dusty, and the floorboards creaked beneath him. Sunlight slipped through the windows, lighting the empty living room where an old couch sat covered in a sheet. A wooden table stood in the corner, and a cracked mirror hung on the wall. It looked abandoned, but not entirely. There were footprints on the floor. Fresh footprints. Daniel's hand instinctively tightened around the handle of the wrench he had been carrying. "Hello," he called out. No answer. He moved slowly through the house, checking each room carefully. The kitchen had a broken cabinet and a rusty sink, but something caught his eye on the counter. A cup, not dusty, clean, used recently. Daniel felt a small chill crawl up his spine. Someone was living here. He stepped toward the hallway when suddenly a faint sound echoed from upstairs. A floorboard creaked. Daniel froze. He listened carefully, his heart beating louder in the quiet house. Another sound. A soft movement. Someone was definitely upstairs. Daniel walked toward the staircase, each step careful and quiet. The wooden stairs groaned as he climbed, and the hallway above was dim, with only a narrow beam of sunlight slipping through a window at the far end. 3 doors, all closed. He approached the first one and pushed it open. Empty. The second room contained a dusty bed and broken dresser. Empty again. Then he stood in front of the third door. The silence behind it felt different. Alive. Daniel slowly turned the knob. The door creaked open, and what he saw made him stop in complete shock. A girl sat in the corner of the room, clutching a worn blanket around her shoulders. She looked no older than 20, with long dark hair and sharp eyes that stared at him like a wild animal ready to run. The room around her was strangely organized compared to the rest of the house. A small lantern sat on the floor, along with a stack of books and a bag of supplies. She had been living here for a long time. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Finally Daniel lowered the wrench slightly and said carefully, "I didn't know anyone lived here." The girl didn't move. "This is my house," Daniel continued slowly. "Well, technically my ranch. I bought it today." Her eyes widened. "You bought it?" she whispered. "For $1, Daniel replied. The girl stared at him in disbelief. "That's impossible," she said quietly. Daniel shrugged. Apparently nobody else wanted it. The girl looked down at the floor, her fingers tightening around the blanket. For the first time, Daniel noticed how thin she looked. Her clothes were worn but clean, and her eyes carried a strange mix of fear and determination. "How long have you been here?" he asked gently. She hesitated. 3 years. Daniel blinked in shock. 3 years, he repeated. She nodded. "I had nowhere else to go." The room fell silent again as Daniel tried to process what he had just heard. This girl had been living alone in an abandoned ranch house for 3 years. "How old are you?" he asked. 19. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "Well," he said awkwardly, "this is unexpected." The girl looked at him cautiously. "Are you going to make me leave?" Daniel sighed and leaned against the doorframe. Technically, he could. The property was legally his. But something about her situation didn't sit right with him. "No," he finally said. Her head snapped up in surprise. "You can stay," he continued. "At least until we figure something out." For the first time, the girl's expression softened slightly. "My name is Emily," she said quietly. "Daniel," he replied. They stood there in silence, two strangers brought together by a $1 ranch and a twist of fate neither of them expected. But neither of them knew yet that this meeting would change both their lives forever. And what Daniel didn't realize was that Emily wasn't just hiding from the world. She was hiding a secret about the ranch itself. A secret that explained why the land had been sold for $1. And why nobody else dared to live there. But before the story continues, take a quick moment to support the channel. Stories like this take hours to create, and your support helps bring more powerful stories to life. So if you enjoy suspenseful Western tales and unforgettable characters, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Because what Daniel was about to discover on that ranch would change everything. And the truth behind Emily's presence there would soon put both of their lives in danger. Daniel didn't sleep much that night. The wind moved softly across the empty land outside, whispering through the tall grass like a quiet warning, and the old wooden house creaked with every shift of the night air. He had offered Emily the upstairs room while he slept on the dusty couch downstairs. But sleep never really came. His mind kept replaying the moment he opened that door and saw her sitting there in the corner like a ghost guarding the forgotten house. 3 years. A 19-year-old girl surviving alone in a broken ranch house for 3 years. The more he thought about it, the less sense it made. People didn't just disappear into empty places like this unless they were hiding from something, or someone. Morning light finally pushed through the dirty windows, painting the living room in soft gold. Daniel sat up slowly, rubbing his tired eyes. The smell of something cooking drifted faintly from the kitchen. That alone surprised him. When he stepped inside, he found Emily standing near the old stove, carefully heating a small pan over a portable gas burner. 2 eggs cracked into the pan sizzled quietly. She looked up when she noticed him. "I found some supplies," she said softly. "I've been storing food here." Daniel nodded slowly, still trying to understand her. "You plan to stay here a long time," he said. Emily didn't answer immediately. "I didn't have anywhere else," she replied. They ate quietly at the small wooden table, the silence between them filled with unspoken questions. Finally Daniel leaned forward. "Emily," he said carefully, "why this place?" Her eyes lowered toward the table. "Because no one else would come here." Daniel frowned. "Why not?" Emily looked toward the window, toward the endless land stretching outside. "People say this ranch is cursed." Daniel let out a quiet breath. "I heard that yesterday," he said. "But curses don't scare me." Emily's voice grew more serious. "This isn't just a rumor." Daniel studied her face. "Then tell me the truth." She hesitated again, as if deciding whether she could trust him. Finally she spoke. 10 years ago this ranch belonged to a man named Harold Whitaker." Daniel nodded slightly. The name sounded familiar from the courthouse records. "He was rich," Emily continued. "But people said he wasn't honest. He had enemies. A lot of them." Daniel listened carefully. "One night," Emily said, "something happened out here. No one knows exactly what. But the next morning Whitaker disappeared. His entire family vanished with him." Daniel leaned back. "And people blamed the ranch." Emily nodded slowly. "They said the land was cursed, that anyone who stayed here would disappear too." Daniel shrugged slightly. "That just sounds like small-town gossip." Emily looked at him directly. "Except for one thing." "What?" "Before he disappeared, Whitaker hid something here." Daniel's eyebrows lifted. "Something valuable." Emily nodded. "Very valuable." Daniel let out a small laugh. "So let me guess. Hidden treasure." Emily didn't smile. "Yes." Daniel stopped laughing. You're serious? Emily leaned closer. I found it. The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Daniel stared at her. You found it? Emily nodded slowly. In the barn. Under the floor. Daniel suddenly understood something. That's why you stayed here. Yes. What was it? Emily swallowed. A metal box. Locked. Daniel's curiosity burned now. What's inside? Emily shook her head. I never opened it. Daniel blinked. You lived here 3 years guarding something you never opened. Emily's voice dropped. Because the night I found it, someone else came looking for it. Daniel felt the tension rise in the room. What do you mean? Emily's hands tightened slightly. A black truck drove up the road. 2 men got out. They searched the barn, the house, everything. Daniel leaned forward. Did they find the box? No. Where is it now? Emily hesitated. Hidden. Daniel stared at her. You're telling me criminals might still be looking for it? Yes. As if on cue, a distant sound echoed across the ranch. An engine. Both of them froze. The sound grew louder. A vehicle approaching. Emily's face turned pale. That's them. Daniel stood up quickly and walked to the window. A black pickup truck rolled slowly toward the ranch house. 2 men sat inside. Daniel's jaw tightened. Well, he muttered, looks like the curse just arrived. Emily's voice trembled slightly. We have to hide. Daniel shook his head. No. She looked at him in shock. What? You've been hiding for 3 years, Daniel said calmly. That ends today. The truck stopped outside. 2 large men stepped out, wearing dark jackets and cold expressions. One of them knocked loudly on the door. Daniel walked toward it. Emily grabbed his arm. Don't open it. Daniel gave her a calm look. Trust me. He opened the door. The taller man stepped forward. You the new owner? Daniel nodded. Just bought it yesterday. The man glanced around the property. We're looking for something. Daniel leaned casually against the doorframe. Funny, he said. So am I. The second man narrowed his eyes. Old owner left something valuable behind. Daniel shrugged. If you find it, let me know. The first man stepped closer. You sure no one else is staying here? Daniel didn't move. Just me. The men exchanged a look. Finally the taller one smirked. If you find a metal box, it belongs to us. Daniel smiled slightly. Pretty sure that's not how ownership works. The man's expression hardened. You'll regret being stubborn. They turned and walked back toward the truck. The engine roared as they drove away down the dirt road. Emily rushed to the window. They'll come back, she whispered. Daniel nodded. I know. What are we going to do? Daniel looked toward the barn. You said the box is hidden there. Yes. He grabbed his jacket. Then it's time we open it. They walked quickly across the dusty yard toward the barn. The wind moved through the broken roof panels, making a hollow sound inside the wooden structure. Emily knelt near a loose floorboard and pulled it aside. A small metal box sat beneath it. Daniel lifted it out carefully. It was heavy, locked. Emily handed him a small rusted key. I found this beside it. Daniel inserted the key. The lock clicked open. Slowly he lifted the lid. Inside were stacks of old documents, and several gold bars. Daniel let out a quiet whistle. Well, he said softly, that explains everything. Emily stared at the gold in disbelief. I thought maybe it was money, but this. Daniel closed the box. This is enough to change a lot of lives. Emily looked uncertain. What do we do with it? Daniel thought for a moment. Then he smiled. We turn it in. Emily blinked. To the authorities. Yes. But why? Daniel looked out across the ranch. Because this place deserves a fresh start, not another secret. Emily watched him quietly. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Weeks later the ranch looked different. Repairs had begun. New fence posts stood strong along the land, and the barn roof had been fixed. The gold had been reported, and after legal investigations the government awarded Daniel and Emily a large portion as legal finders. But the real reward was the land itself. One evening they stood on the porch watching the sunset burn across the wide open fields. Emily smiled softly. You bought a ranch for $1. Daniel nodded. And found something worth a lot more. Emily looked at him. What? Daniel smiled. A reason to stay. The wind moved gently across the land as the sun disappeared behind the hills, and the once forgotten ranch finally felt alive again. And if you enjoyed this powerful Western story, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next adventure. More unforgettable cowboy stories are coming soon.